We are going to get into the news here on ForceCenter. We have been just enjoying taking our little extra time with the news. We also have been having fun putting them up on YouTube. Just kind of rebroadcasting that part of the show. I told you, it's this day. I can't get the tongue to work today.
I understand.
But we are going to dive into the news. We got, I guess, some breaking news, Joseph, at the time of our recording. This is not giant news. You know, it was not revealed that Pedro Pascal has quit Star Wars on our recording here. We've got Mando Mondays. That's right. You can go to mandomondays.com. And every Monday, you're going to see new toys and digital content all leading up to The Mandalorian. And they have a countdown. We're at about 34, 33 days till Mando season 2. It's toys, and Polaroids, Joseph. This is the most important news. The technology you and I took for granted as children is now all the rage. Get a Polaroid. Get a Mando Polaroid, Joseph.
Yeah, the technology from that song, the Polaroid picture. This is the whole Mando Mondays thing is fascinating to me. Speaking of old songs, and it makes me sing Manic Monday to myself.
It's another Mando Monday.
I'm sure someone involved is very aware of that that little earworm that you can possibly create with Mando Monday. This is fascinating to me just from the perspective that we've been talking about for a little while. Of it feels like Mandalorian and Galaxy's Edge together right now, and for I think a while they're the face of Star Wars. That's what Star Wars is in the popular culture. It is the child. He's going to be sipping bone broth on anything he can be printed on for the foreseeable future. There is the child only Monopoly game that I'm very, very tempted by.
What?
It's just a giant picture of his face, and I think you go to like now you get a frog. I don't know. I didn't look closely. I don't think you can quite buy frog Avenue. But anyway, lot of cool products. I think that's I think it is an ongoing reality of Star Wars since the beginning. That is a part of what makes Star Wars an actual commerce empire. Is that fans really like to engage with the story by kind of bringing a part of it home. And this is really fascinating that there'll be some clips or whatever, but Mando Monday mostly feels like there's even more merch in revealing really weird and interesting things like the Polaroids. Very cool.
Yeah, we kid, but I love it. I love that stuff. And I'll tell you what, man, I complain every week about a lack of allowance money, despite not going to Target and saving money and storage space. But then you see something like the Funko Pop with the Mando walking with the Baby Yoda pram, and you're like, oh, that totally belongs on my shelf. That needs to go in front of my TV.
Yeah.
Add to cart. Oh, get it out.
Yeah.
So it just taps into something, man. It's built into the Star Wars brand. We get it, the history, Kenner figures, everything. It's no surprise. So looks good. We'll be checking on Mando Mondays. Whoa, every Monday.
Yeah. The Polaroid somehow the Polaroid works for me, I think, even more than if it had been like a Rise of Skywalker Polaroid or Galaxy's Edge Polaroid, because there's something about Mando that there's so much of it that is tied back to I think Favreau really wanting to capture the vibe of A New Hope, that there's something about the Polaroid that works. Of let's go back to the old ways. This is the old way. Shake it.
That's right, kids. Shake your Polaroid. All right, let's get to the actual planned headlines. That one was kind of breaking news here, but hey, we're staying with Mando. Mando wins. We had the Emmys Sunday night. Different kind of broadcast. We also have the awards kind of announced all during the week. Now, the Creative Arts Emmys usually do happen at another time. Same with the Oscars. I'll never forget Letterman's joke about it being hosted with a cash bar. Just something that always spoke to me. I love that joke that back in the 95 Oscars. Anyways, moving on. Speaking of old things, we've got, let me count here, 7 wins for The Mandalorian total. And it was hoping. I didn't think it would win Best Drama, but hey, you never know. But here's what they got. I'll run through it, and we'll talk a little bit about it here, Joseph. Mandalorian took home the following Creative Arts Emmys: Outstanding Cinematography for a Single Camera Series. This was Chapter 7. specifically. Outstanding production design for a narrative program, specifically Chapter 1. Outstanding sound editing for a comedy or drama series, and that's for a half hour in animation, Chapter 1. And outstanding sound mixing for a comedy or drama series, that's an animation, Chapter 2. Got that one. Love that episode. That sandcrawler chase alone probably took that one there. Outstanding special visual effects, Mando Chapter 2. On the other Emmys, more on the primetime side, though this one was announced Saturday. Outstanding music composition for a series, original dramatic score. The whole team, but of course Ludwig Göransson kind of leading that team, taking that one, and he tweeted out some great photos, real gracious, showing a lot of gratitude for that one there. Outstanding stunt coordination for a drama series is the other award it took home, and that one I totally agree. Lateef Crowder and Brendan Wayne, definitely really contributing to that. Good stuff, good fight sequences in this one. All right, so that's what they won. What do you think about those big wins, Joseph?
Oh, I was really, really happy with the level of nominations, the number of nominations, and I'm really happy with all the wins. I think it's really interesting because that Disney Gallery show was so successful in really, at least for me as a viewer, making me bond a little bit more with some of the people behind the scenes, so it feels even more personal. Like, I think Ludwig Göransson absolutely deserves it, and I'm thrilled by it. But even more when I hear that he and his team won, I picture him going like, "Well, I'm going to retire to this hut with my weird flutes and my big computer wall of music making sounds," and like it's even more emotional for me as a viewer because of that great Disney Gallery series. Yeah, and I think overall it's just kind of a fascinating mirror with A New Hope in particular, or Star Wars as it would have been called at the time, that when Star Wars hit the scene, it was nominated for all of these, technical. I'm going to say technical, but we all know that the technical is also creative, right? But technically technical. Right. So it was nominated for all the technical stuff, but it was also nominated for some of the big tier creative stuff, Best Picture, Best Director, all that kind of stuff. So a little bit similar, not exactly award for award, but very similar, that it was that A New Hope was nominated across the board. So was Mandalorian, and it won in the same way. It won a bunch of the technical awards and the music, but nothing higher than that. Is a very fascinating mirror to A New Hope, and it makes me think about how much the relationship with genre has or has not changed when it comes to awards.
Yeah, I remember when the nominations came out, we kind of talked about this, and I think you answered just the great question of what these wins kind of mean for Star Wars, then, now, and forever. It is always going to be a weird, I don't know, Game of Thrones was something different. Some of the other shows have come along something different, where it transcends the genre in terms of awards, in terms of people loving it. You're so right, because by Empire, which by all accounts, should have been maybe the one, to get a little bit more on the creative side. Yeah, technical stuff. It's pushed aside. Peter Jackson wins in Return of the King, which was basically like, yeah, good job on all three. All right, here you go. Take this, get on out of here. And it's just the way it is. But I love the connection you're making here, Joseph. That, to me, that speaks to the Mandalorian showing up and changing the game. And we got to celebrate it each week with the Disney Gallery series. And these nominations reflect that, is what I think. And I love the connection you made. It was new and exciting and trend setting and broke new ground in 77. And now here again, 2019 into 2020, it's doing the same thing. Star Wars. And no mistake. It's a similar vibe, a series there, I guess, too. Spiritually the same.
Yeah. I think it's really fascinating what you said about Game of Thrones, because I think maybe that's a part of why we're really fascinated with if Star Wars is ever going to win things like Best Director, Best Picture, or Best Drama. Because even something like Game of Thrones was like, yeah, it's genre, there are dragons, but the whole spin of Game of Thrones, starting with the books, is, yeah, it's dragons, but serious. The adult political issues around, like, that's its whole perspective. And there's something fascinating to me about Star Wars is I don't think it's ever going to let go of the B picture, the pulp, the adventure serial, the, sense of comedy and whimsy. I think that's always going to be what makes Star Wars really different. This tension between, yeah, it's great drama with, tremendous actors and like the best directors working in the field. But it's also still going to be like, but we're also still here for the pew pew. And
Yeah.
I wonder if it's just sort of its perspective in always holding on to that. I can see it winning if someday, we get a bunch of different Disney Plus shows and they really pitch it of like, keep the kids at home. This is Star Wars for adults, that suddenly it will win all the big awards.
Yeah. Exactly the case, especially on Game of Thrones. And I think we can get spoiled, but it's easy to forget exactly what you're saying. The dialogue, though, there's weird dialogue talking about Lannisters and dragons and dire wolves and all those kind of things. You just don't take it as fantasy, high, low, mid, whatever. You don't take it as that. Where Star Wars, even something, I know people were talking about Mark Hamill and Last Jedi. Like, could he get any kind of nomination? And I think we all agree that was his best performance as Luke. Whether you maybe agree with the decisions around it, he just put it all on the table and some of his best stuff. But it's just one of those things. It just, voters are not gonna look at the Space Wizard too seriously, no matter what. It's just the way of it.
Yeah, I think it does. It comes down to a little bit of how the show presents itself and the actual PR behind the scenes.
Yep. Which is refreshing for Mando to break through a little bit of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just by being, I don't want to come off overly negative, just by being nominated, I think it does break through a lot of that. And it is a tribute to how fresh the Mandalorian feels. The other thing I wanted to say about this is I think this number of wins and the nominations for things like Best Drama Series, I think it is just undeniably Mando is a success. We talk a lot on ForceCenter about, taste in art is subjective. And I think we should always say, I love this. This is my favorite. But is it good? Is it bad? We only have so many objective measurement tools for is something good, bad, a, financial or cultural success, right? And especially since we don't have traditional ratings of any kind for a streaming service, this is one of those few just like, hey, this is objective. It is a factual truth that it was nominated and for many awards and won many awards. So I think it is one of the things that just will go down in the history books as a successful first season.
Yeah, and sets a high bar, not just for this show going forward, but for the other Star Wars shows coming down the line. This is an important standard, I think, and fun. And I think it's going to be fun for the shows to strive for this as well. Not that awards are what the business is about, but just recognition. I like the recognition across all boards, not just Star Wars podcasts.
Agreed.
And I want Hal Hickel to just keep winning. I agree with you. Disney Gallery introduced me to a wide variety of folks that I want to root for. So Hal Hickel, all the behind the scenes people, I'm happy for their big wins. All right, let's go on to this next story here. I just knew this was going to happen. I knew this was going to happen. What a safe prediction that was. But hey, StarWars.com revealed that the upcoming VR series Tales from the Galaxy's Edge, you're going to be able to walk around, but too, you're going to be able to go into the bars. We're going to have adventures, and part of that adventure will include C-3PO and Anthony Daniels. Oh, you thought he was done, but they pulled them back in. He will voice Threepio in the ILM X Lab Star Wars Tales from Galaxy's Edge. Bonus, you're also along the way going to meet Yoda, but focusing here on C-3PO. So first of all, I'll start here, Joseph. What is your just emotional reaction to hearing Threepio and Anthony Daniels together again?
I just like that it's continuing. I like that Daniels has never backed off, except for some rare moments here and there, from wanting to be Threepio. And I love it that he kind of had this great big goodbye tour. Threepio is featured heavily in Rise of Skywalker, gets some great lines. Anthony Daniels, basically managed to make some book announcements at Star Wars Celebration in a cheeky Anthony Daniels way. So it's basically like, I've done it. I've been Threepio for 42 years. Goodbye, world. I'm back. It's pitch perfect Threepio and Anthony Daniels and really delightful.
Yeah, this is not a small party. Either Threepio, here's a bit of the story. Threepio's on the way to Batu on an important mission for the Resistance. Remember, he's got charge of the spy network of spy droids. He's got some stuff going on, and you are gonna have to help him. I think it's a crash that leads you into this arrangement here. So I think that's fun too, Joseph. That it's not just he pops out and offers you a drink. He's in it. He's part of the story. You're going to get to interact with him often, and that makes it even more worthwhile to me.
Yeah, I really like this storytelling with Threepio of him being the ringleader of the Resistance spies. It's, sort of mentioned in Force Awakens. It's really dived into more in the Poe Dameron comic book and in some of the other novels. I really like it because it makes Threepio proactive. He has a thing that he is doing and he is in charge of. And I think where Threepio suffers for me ever is when he's just reactive, because we've seen him be reactive so much where he is around something unpleasant and letting everyone know. So I really like seeing Threepio in moments where he's like, I am frightened. I don't want to be here. I'm upset. I'm saying all the kind of fun Threepio jokes. But also I have a thing to do. And the Resistance spy thing is really cool to me because it makes him proactive instead of reactive.
Look, there's some really great 3PO moments in Force Awakens and Last Jedi. I like Luke and him having that moment. I love the red arm reveal in Force Awakens. It's one of my favorite moments in Star Wars. But without a doubt, I think 9 is just an amazing use of 3PO. So much going on. I think you're right. Just when he's just kind of sitting around being fussy and reacting, it's fun. It can be fun, but I love that this character, much like R2, they're just part of the story. They're key to the story. They're at the center of it all. So getting an adventure with 3PO is actually kind of interesting for this setting too, where you get to kind of walk around and feel like you're involved. And yeah, look, you said it. You talk about how we feel about Anthony. I actually do love his protective nature over it. We joke and tease Tony for being a showman around these parts there. And I know even J.J. Abrams in the forward to his book kind of tease him as well. He loves telling the stories. He loves talking about it. And, and he should. He's got quite a collection of adventures playing this character. And you said it too, but I want to drill down on this respect. I just really respect for his involvement in Star Wars. And even during the times where Star Wars was a little on the back burner or, wasn't always, hear me out here, not always, positive feelings around it. Hey, maybe not too. But even taking that going forward, that Anthony Daniels is here to be involved and he loves it and he embraces it, going to fan weekends, singing on Christmas records back in the day, loves it. And even though, he is a showman who loves to tell these stories and yep, you can poke him over that and tease him over that. I just love that that's what we got from him, Joseph. You know what I mean? Someone who wants to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And somebody who just does feel an affinity for the character. And it all flows out of the fact that the character, Lucas had one idea in mind as they were filming it, and he was just doing the voice and going to be replaced. But then he really made that character his own.
I stared at that picture on the wall, and he stared at me as if, how many times we've heard that story? And I still love hearing it. Love hearing it. One question. All right. So this is, I don't want to turn this too dark, but but eventually, hey, he might have to put down the mask. You know what I mean? Eventually, everything must pass, right? And unfortunately, even before Peter Mayhew passed away, the transition had been made to Jonas on Chewbacca, and that was. Going back to Force Awakens, knowing that there were some shots where very clearly it wasn't Peter Mayhew, and I remember kind of even in our reviews or discussions going, yeah, there's that. He's climbing up the ladder, and I just couldn't help but think it wasn't Peter Mayhew. And I've certainly not gotten over that. I don't want to get over Peter Mayhew as Chewbacca. But Jonas Suotamo has definitely just embraced it, and I just think does an amazing job carrying on the legacy. So, Threepio, Joseph, maybe not on screen in movies. We don't know what they're going to do, but in cartoons, animated programs, whatever it may be, Threepio without Anthony Daniels. Any thoughts on that and how significant that would be to you as a fan?
Yeah. I think there are. I was reading some 3PO Wikipedia stuff, just because that's what I do on a Saturday night. Now I have to research another thing, but yeah, I believe Tom Kane has voiced 3PO a couple times in the past. And I'm sure there might be some other examples that I don't personally have memorized. But yeah, no, Anthony Daniels has been really synonymous, and I think that it's one of those sad things of course, that there's going to be a time where he can't do it anymore, and the world will still want some tales that involve 3PO or tales of 3PO, and it's a weird, bittersweet thing that the stories of Star Wars sort of prepare us for this. That
Mm,
they're generational stories. They're stories about letting go. They're stories about mourning, but also celebrating and accepting that this is the way of things. This is the way of the Force. This is the cycle of, one thing ends, but a new thing begins. And I think in a way, it's kind of I don't know, it's a weird thing to talk about, but
mm,
it's a bittersweet but kind of beautiful way to process that truth because it's so a part of the story, and knowing that
mm.
Peter Mayhew and Eunice Swadamo really went through that process. It sounds like behind the scenes of The Force Awakens, and
Right.
Eunice saying things publicly like, we agreed, and I will never tell people which scenes are me and which are Peter." And having sort of respect for that, but also just, I don't know, maybe it's a way that Star Wars can help us all process change and letting go, to be honest about it, of it's going to happen, and here's a moment where we can sort of think about it, and don't want to quite say celebrate it, but accept it.
Absolutely. Yeah, the lessons are on the screen, and to apply them to all situations, it just makes Star Wars that much more valuable. And you'll look back, and anytime you kind of laughed and rolled your eyes at like, oh, of course, Anthony Daniels is voicing 3PO for this pasta commercial. You'll look back and cherish that even more. But fortunately, I don't want to turn it too dark. Anthony Daniels is still here, showman that he is, and he'll be voicing 3PO. Look for him in the Galaxy's Edge VR game. Travel to Batuu with him. Final thought on this here. What area, planet, or world would you want to see a VR game tackle next? Because I don't know if I'm going to get this VR set up, but walking around Galaxy's Edge, maybe because I got to do it in real life, is something that does kind of intrigue me for a VR game. Have you thought about where else you maybe want to explore in a VR Star Wars game?
Yeah, I mean, I like that this VR game is Batu, but then it also sounds like you're going to go to the bartender and hear
Mhm.
stories, and then you get to play through them. So maybe you get to,
Yeah.
see a lot of other places, which is real cool. But you know what? I think I could list a million places, but honestly, Cloud City. I love Cloud City. We haven't revisited it in canon much at all, and certainly not visually. It's one of my very favorite levels on Battlefront. When you're playing heroes versus villains, sometimes when I had more time to play, I would sit there playing for hours, just waiting for it to rotate back to Cloud
Yeah.
City. So I would love to wander around there in VR.
That's great. Yeah, that's a great answer. I think mine might be Jabba's Palace, because I think if you're doing a VR game, if you get sent down to the Rancor and you got to fight the Rancor, and
Oh,
that'd be kind of terrifying. Then you can go smoke some hookah with Bib Fortuna around the corner. I wouldn't mind that one as well. Coruscant, we might be busy, but you and I did the bar crawl, the Star Wars bar crawl last week, going to the Outlander Club or the Cantina. Just maybe a VR Star Wars bar crawl is what I want now.
oh yeah, that would be great. I talk about the absolute height of just bizarre sort of video game laziness. I would love to be able to go to the Outlander and then just sit there and watch the pod races.
Yeah. I play the Red Dead Redemption games where I go play a hand of poker for an hour at a bar in a made up town. I could do that very easily there. All right, now to our main event here in the news. We got Alden Ehrenreich discussing his solo adventure. This popped up in Total Film. Now, the full interview is in Total Film, meaning you can go buy the magazine. I don't do that anymore. I used to do that like crazy. I used to go swing by a newsstand or a Barnes and Noble and get like $50 worth of magazines sometimes. Wow, 2006 seems like yesterday, but also a lifetime ago. But we do got a little highlight collection to go through here. This was, I think, some interesting stuff. And I'll say this up top. I want to get your thoughts here, Joseph. Just I'm not surprised that he is talking about it. But there was a period, and he does explain it. We're going to discuss it, but there was a period where it just seemed like, hey, not that he was grumpy or past it or anything, but just like you couldn't find him. You couldn't find Alden Ehrenreich, and you couldn't get a solo take. And now we're starting to see some stuff emerge. Yes, he's got a show to promote. That's how it works. But I was pleasantly surprised just to hear him even talk about it, if that makes sense, Joseph.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is such an interesting phenomenon that has gone on for a long time, but I think is becoming more pronounced. That you've heard over the years different genre actors when they've signed up for Star Wars or Star Trek or something else huge, or Doctor Who, that the stories of, or superhero things, the story of this actor calls another famous actor who did it and says, what'll it be like, and the story of it's going to change your life, nothing's ever going to be the same. And it's so interesting that such a specific part of that has emerged is, hey, remember, you can never promote another project without being asked about the big genre thing. And actors must just go in knowing like, hey, if I do a Star Wars in 30 years later, I do an interview for that pasta commercial I did, I will be asked about Star Wars. And Alden seems to be embracing that reality.
Yeah. And like, obviously, I know the Boyega stuff, and he's been not shy talking about Star Wars recently for different, perhaps, fair to say, more important reasons. But I'm thinking of like an Adam Driver. You just don't get the sense that that's going to be an okay line of questioning. And I was around Adam Driver for 10 seconds. I was leaving Collider. He was walking into Collider, and the word was already, don't ask him about Star Wars. Don't even do it. I'm like, I'm getting my book bag. I'm going. Like, don't worry about it. And again, that's not him saying it. I think Adam Driver has his reputation of being grumpy or whatever, or super serious and intense. I'm sure there's some truth to that, but that's not him saying it. It's other people saying it. But Alden is an actor's actor type of guy. You get that sense. And I just maybe had the wrong impression of him, I guess is what I'm saying, in terms of Star Wars. That's, where I'm going with that. We're just like, I'm glad he's just like, you talking about Solo? Let's talk about Solo.
Yeah. No, I think that's been a really consistent and interesting thing, an important thing to remember, that actors are all different. And there are very much actors who are like, it's not that I don't want to talk about it. I just don't have anything new to say, because I had a good experience. I worked hard. My performance is on screen, and that's the story. But Alden Ehrenreich is somebody who I would not be surprised to see, like, suddenly he pivots to be also being a writer and a director, because as we're going to hear, he talks very philosophically. He thinks about the big picture. He's not one of those that's like, I'm an actor and I do my acting job. He is thinking about every element of it. So he has more to say when you ask him about Star Wars, because he thinks about it from that perspective.
True. Deeper, thoughtful stuff here. And this is what he said. These are highlights, but we're going to dive in. Alden called it, quote, an amazing adventure. That's a good way to say it, but I like that that's the take. Again, your focus determines your reality here. But he pointed out that it was a 3-year journey that left him tapped out, saying the well's dry. There's the answer right there. And I get that. And that's a good reminder, even for me, Joseph, that he's on a 3-year journey, from auditions, casting, shooting, press, just living in your life. 3 whole years for that one movie. And then you got Daisy, John, Oscar, Adam, and the entire sequel era team. That's a 10-year journey that they're on.
Yeah.
Really. And that's going to exhaust anyone. I think people generally, especially ForceCenter listeners, that when you hear, Daisy wants to move on, it's not necessarily a comment on the movies. It's a comment on, that was a decade of my life, essentially. And I want to try other things. And I like that Alden touched on that,
Yeah. I think this perspective of that he wants to go out and have experiences as a person too. He's an actor who feels like I draw from my personal experiences, so I want to refresh the well as an actor at all. And then I think having empathy, the way you're talking about, for the experience of these actors who've done an entire trilogy. For me, it's like, I love pasta. I don't know. I'm hungry today. We're talking about pasta constantly, but like, if I ate the world's best pasta, if like every night I went to a different famous great restaurant and ate pasta for 10 years, and the second I finished my 10-year pasta journey, a bunch of interviewers were like, you ready to eat some more pasta? I'd be like, please give me 5 minutes, and probably yes, but right this very second, no.
And look, these experiences, these amazing adventures are that. That's why I love that Alden looks at it as such. I mean, you're going around the world. It's crazy. You're bonkers. You're just living the dream, but it's not 9 to 5. It's not weekends off. And it really does. It does affect you and it drains you. And it affects you in the way that you described, Joseph, of like to bring something to your next role, even if it's the same Star Wars role. You need to, for a writer, it's like you got to kind of write both sides of the pages, as they'll say. You got to live it. You got to live life a little bit. And it's the same with like a band. Your first album, it's 7 years of trying to make it to your first album. Then the second album is cocaine on the road. You know, you had 2 months to write it. All those kind of things. So I think it's important that he touched on that. And maybe if he was to come back to this in any way, I'm not speculating at all, but he'd be bringing even more to Han Solo.
Yeah, I remember, this is a little off topic, but I remember the painful epiphany when I think it was Metallica's on Metallica's 4th album, maybe 5th album. I know there's a big difference between those two, that they had a track about, being restricted kind of by parental figures. And I was like, yeah, I was like, wait, they are not even remotely restricted by parental figures at this point in their life. What am I being sold by Metallica?
And then they cut their hair and the world fell out. I was a rock DJ the year they cut their hair. Wow, you would have thought the world was ending. And maybe it was. Kirk Hammett with a short haircut. Wow, unbelievable. Welcome to Metallica Center. We're going to get to that. He talked about, this is something I know we've talked about, but I just... much like you and I talk about Ewan McGregor saying things we've heard him say before, but also that we're like, all of us as fans are like, yeah, oh my gosh, that's great that he realizes that or gets to experience. Alden said the expectations for the movie, including his, were almost too high. He had the same thing when he heard, they're making a Han Solo fan. He's a Star Wars fan. He gets it. And that the lower expectations, not in a negative sense, that could be used. Lowered expectations can be negative. But he just the lower expectations, the less pressure is the word, the phrases I'm using, is one of the reasons the movie is finding new life on Disney Plus and, of course, Netflix before that. So, again, we have just discussed this before, but what does that really mean to us when we want our expectations to be high as fans, Joseph? We want to go into a Star Wars film and say, reach a certain level. And even though, yes, we are more positive and generally think they've reached our levels, there's still... those expectations are there. Mando season 2. I'm like, arms are crossed a little bit. Like, cool, you got me the first season when I didn't think you would. Where are you going to take me now? That's just kind of natural as a Star Wars fan, as a fan of anything. But what does that all mean to you to hear, especially hear Alden say, yeah, no, I get it. I was there with you all too, but I do think we put something out there, and with less pressure, you can enjoy it.
Yeah, I think for me, it is about understanding the way we talk about expectations, like high expectations, low expectations. That makes sense. That's how we just generally culturally talk about, like, I'm expecting this to be really good, and it's not. And I expect things. I have high expectations, and I expect there to be a really great acting. I expect the writing to be both, in the spirit of Star Wars, in that it is trying to do something new, but it is honoring what has come before. I want to see really cool designs of creatures and exciting spaceships. Like, I have high expectations for the general level of quality. But I think with Solo, in many Star Wars properties, we're not actually talking about high expectations. We're talking about specific expectations. And I kind of feel like that's what Alden Ehrenreich is saying here. That's how I read it, is if you tell the world there's going to be a young Han Solo movie, everybody has high expectations that the quality be high, but they also have specific expectations because we all already have a relationship with Han Solo. So we have these specific ideas of what a Han Solo movie would look like, specific expectations. And then, as you and I have talked about a ton, we go into a movie with, or a TV show with specific expectations. And then when those expectations aren't met, it feels bad because it's not random. We have an emotional attachment to it. If the most important thing to you about Han Solo is that you don't learn where he got the scar, just random thing, right? Then your specific expectation was met in Solo. They didn't tell you. If your specific expectation was, I don't want to know where his name came from, where Solo came from, that specific expectation was broken. It was not met, and you have this strong emotional reaction. And I think it's kind of natural to say, oh, the movie was bad, instead of saying the specific expectation I had was or was not met. And then it makes it so that second viewing, in a way, is the first time you're allowing yourself to just see the movie for what it is versus what your specific, sometimes highly emotional expectations are.
Yeah. Yeah, the specific stuff. Yeah, that's kind of what gets you. And I go back to Force Awakens. Now, the pressure and the expectations, I always say I've been waiting for that movie since 1983, so I had a lot riding on it. And I remember driving home the first time I saw it. And again, there's a lot of things, and I changed my thoughts on and specific plot points in the movie and specific scenes. Han's death, the one I've probably talked about the most, thanks to some of the stuff you pointed out on the Jedi Alliance episode I called into. But I remember driving back the first time, and I enjoyed it, and it was fun. And there was so much I was like, yeah. But then, the Starkiller base and the trench run, and I had the thought, I was like, oh, maybe they didn't hit my nope, maybe they didn't do it. Maybe they didn't do it. And then I just was able to kind of go, but wait a minute, what are you feeling? Take your brain out of it right now. What are you actually feeling? You're feeling joy. You're feeling, oh wow, that scene. Oh God, I want to see that again. Oh, when she said this. Oh my God. So it worked. And I think it's okay to ask yourself those questions. And Alden specifically talks about, for the movie to be able to be seen would take a second viewing. And he says, I think that's borne itself out. And that goes some stuff you and I talked about too, of just sit on it a second. Just come on out, talk with your friends.
Yeah.
Sit on it.
Yeah. And I mean, some of this is kind of where the whole speculate responsibly phrase comes from, of like not getting over attached to the specific thing you want. But I think you can also, I think it's also fine to just say, like, here's what I really hope it is. And if the first time you see it goes, oh man, those specific things I was hoping for weren't there, I'm really bummed out. I'm going to take a beat and, go back another week or whatever and try to see it again for the first time. I think that's totally understandable. I think where we get ourselves into trouble is when we sort of just immediately jump to, it didn't meet my specific expectations, so it's bad. And to just like really include myself, when I went into Rogue One, we on ForceCenter at that time talked a bunch about Vader's role. And I had really got myself to the point where for me, the great thing about having Vader in a moment like this is we can see the true horror of the threat of Vader in his prime. And as the moments were ticking down in Rogue One, on my first viewing, I was taken out of it a little bit. Like, I remember just as Vader was showing up at the battle, I was like, oh, thank goodness. Okay, we are going to get that specific expectation I want. And then we're like, oh, well, Vader's going to go over there and do this. Or, I can't remember which Imperial says Vader's this. I'm like, come on, Vader, do this. I was so caught up in needing that very honestly, if the Vader hallway scene hadn't been there and it had just been the business meeting on Mustafar, which I also love, I would have had to take a second because I would have been personally disappointed in Rogue One. And I would have had to sit with that because it didn't meet that specific expectation. And then I would have had to see the film again to get past my, upset that thing I really wanted wasn't there. And that's a moment I've had to be really honest with myself about, of it would have greatly affected my reaction to Rogue One on the first viewing if the hallway scene wasn't there.
Yeah. Especially, nothing against marketing and everything. It is what it is. But when you're like aware that you've seen something. Now, Rogue One is a little bit different. I remember thinking, hey, they're not running on the beach. Different conversation.
Different movie. Yeah. And I'm trying to extend that to like, we had that really fun Star Wars ranked about Mando season 2 hopes. And like, I got some big ones, but I'm also trying to remind myself of like, okay, if the rumor's true and Boba Fett shows up, here's what I really want out of it. But if it's something different, I got to take a beat and be open to that too.
Yeah, and I think that's what Alden is talking about here. And he goes on to talk about what he calls the catastrophe or celebration approach, the all or nothing approach by movie media. He does take this to be on, bigger discussions to be had, and I'm right there with them on it. But trying to keep this to Star Wars and movie media discussion, something you and I have been very much a part of in the last 5 years, Joseph. He says an article headline that says things are complicated and there are good sides and bad sides isn't getting the emotional response. And he's talking about quote unquote legit high level journalism, right? Not just a website that we all, websites we don't go to or trust. So I love that he brought that up because that factors into Solo not doing well in terms of money. We know the budget it had spiraled a bit out because they basically had to reshoot the movie, and then they didn't make a lot of that money back. He addresses that, but he does say it wasn't successful as a Star Wars movie, but it was a successful movie. All those kind of things factor into it, and I think that stuff always comes up in the discussion of Solo. And this was one of those movies. I think the content was not done any justice by the all or nothing coverage of these things, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And this is one of those things where, like, here's Alden is a person who wants to look at all sides of everything. He's talking about his own personal experience. He's imagining the audience's, expectations going in to see a Han Solo movie. He's talking about the media coverage. It's fascinating to have this actor who wants to talk about all that stuff. And I just could not agree with him more. It's a thing that really frustrates me in general, and particularly with Solo. Like, I'm sure there were some good headlines, but so many were just like Solo flops, Solo's a failure. Is Star Wars dead, if you get to in the more clickbaity. But like,
right.
Maybe there were a couple of headlines like this, but like, I think the headlines should have been things like Solo's massive box office, still a drop for Star Wars movie, or Solo's massive box office, not enough to meet finances of reshoot. Like, that's, including just, hey, it is massive box office, but still not as much as a normal Star Wars movie, or not enough to cover the reshoots. I'm not for anybody spinning it to just make Star Wars always shiny, but that part where it's like, it made an insane amount of money by normal movie standards is so taken out of the conversation. And I think it's an important part of the conversation because it does say that there is still demand for Star Wars, just not on the level, or this movie had problems, or, the marketing, or blah, all the conversations we've had.
Yeah. And that's probably an almost different side of the conversation where I really think the behind the scenes stuff, because there's always going to be behind the scenes stuff that you can talk about. I don't like to factor it into the final product. I don't think you and I do here at ForceCenter. We just, what's on the screen is what we got, and we kind of judge on that. The other stuff it's fun. I want Chris Taylor to write the How Star Wars Reconquered the universe book and cover. I really do, and I wish to death I could hear all the 100% confirmed juicy gossip from all these sets. I love it. I get it, but. I don't like when that factors into the conversation, and the way you discuss Star Wars, to me, it's important and has value, and I think that's something that's part of our unexpressed, but hangs over everything we do here at ForceCenter in a good way, not like the Empire over Cloud City.
Yeah,
the way we discuss it, the way we frame the discussions is important.
Yeah, and I think to Alden's point about Star Wars, and if you want to take it out to other things, just I feel like there are different levels of headlines. There's what kind of professional news outlets, entertainment news outlets put out, and then there's clickbait. But I think a lot of them do come together to that point where I feel like they're trying to harvest my anger by spinning things, by making it all glowing or all bad. And I see it again and again on my Facebook feed where, it is clear that people just read the headline and not the article. And I don't think that's a great way to talk about anything. Everybody has a right to be mad about something, but let's try to be mad about the article instead of the headline is what I'm for.
Yeah. And Solo faced a lot of that as a movie, and the talking points, the headline talking points that get kind of regurgitated, they're fading away. I've had more positive conversations about Solo in the last 6 months than I had at the beginning, for sure. And that's why the less pressure in the movie, like Alden said, and how we choose to discuss it again has value.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
talked a lot.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, sir,
I
please.
was just going to say, let's, this is a weird thing to say, but like, let's set a date on the 10-year anniversary of the movie Solo. Let's find an 8-year-old and ask the 8-year-old if they know about what the box office was for Solo.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's we say that with a little snark and a little tongue in cheek, but it's true.
It's how movies live on. With some of this stuff fades.
Yes. Today's problems are tomorrow's memories. I don't know. Does that make sense? Put it on a t-shirt. Today's problems are tomorrow's Netflix documentary that you love and watch with your friends. Did you know that this happened? Yeah. It is fun. So, final thought here, without a doubt, no secret, you and I love this movie, and we've talked a lot about why we love Solo and why people should see it and see it again for the first time. What is one thing we love about the Solo movie that we really haven't discussed much before here? Do you got anything? It could be small detail, little vibe, little feeling. What brings you back to that movie?
Yeah, no, you're right. We've talked about the big things, so I'm going to really hold myself back and not list some of the big things. But I think one of the bigger things that we haven't talked about as much that I really like about Solo is the romance. We've been talking about romance on ForceCenter a lot in terms of that idea of storytelling of sweeping and mysterious. But this time, I mean like romance, like feelings. I love that has these elements of just straight up. The narrative is Han and Kira care about each other and they get separated, and Han thinks about what it is to be alone and wants to believe that he can stand on his own, but also really wants to be with Kira, and down to the point of having the smooching session on the Falcon, and just some of the score is sweeping, unambiguous old Hollywood romance, and in a non-sexual way. Obviously it's sexual between Han and Kira, but in a just hey, everybody needs somebody. That is such a big theme of people needing somebody, and Kira having this really epiphany that you think you need me, Han, but I'm seeing you've found Chewie, and you and Chewie need each other, and all these different ideas of romance, from the explicitly like, hey, this is fun, old Hollywood, couple hot for each other, to the more just emotional ideas of we all need someone, and Han thinking he needs Kira and realizing, I don't think he actually realizes, the audience realizes that he needs Chewie. I love that element. We haven't had a ton of romance in Star Wars, and Solo gives it to us. We haven't had a ton of romance lately in Star Wars. Solo gives it to us.
Yeah, and I love some of the just Emilia Clarke as Kira. There's just some shots that just are so old Hollywood, old Hollywood, and they really work. And I do enjoy that a lot. And yep, a love story about Han and Chewie, indeed, as well. For me, there's a glee in Han's eyes throughout most of this movie. And Alden does such a good job bringing in. And this is why it starts, oddly enough, I'm on video, I'm on record. Dear God, I hope they don't say his name, Solo, and how he got it. You can find clips of me saying that. And then I get to the theater and I see it, and the scene happens. And I look in Alden's eyes and I go, he just became Solo. He just became Han. That's the identity has swept over him. And then before that, there's a lot of it. But even after that, there's just that though I have a bigger purpose, Kira, as you said, but I'm out and about in the galaxy like I always wanted. Mm-hmm. And hot damn, isn't this fun? And hot damn, I'm going to go to this crazy private party. I'm in the VIP section. I got this guy. I can tell he's dangerous, but it's going to be, I got a really good feeling about this. It just, all that showing up, Han at that point in his life, and he's learning the big lessons. The train sequence is about loss of life and the danger of that lifestyle. We got the stuff with Infant's Nest, but even at the end with Infant's Nest, when she's like, "Come on, join us," he's like, "Nah, come on, no, adventure awaits me."
Yeah, I just love it. Yeah. No, I mean, your point is so good, because I think that is one of the things that makes it a thrilling adventure. Is even though he's learning those lessons, he is having so much fun. Even in moments where he's terrified, he is excited to be out there and doing this. And I think that reconnects us to that just spirit of whiz bang adventure.
Yeah, and then the final, when he and Chewie punch it into light speed together after the Falcon, they win the fight. Like, the joy of we know the adventures, and we don't know all the adventures, but we know most of the adventures they're going to have. And we know how bad it's going to get. We know how it ends for Han and how his death is important to the galaxy. But that is often why I go back to that movie, just to watch Alden make those choices of Han Solo happy to be on this amazing adventure. That's why I love it. That's why Joseph loves it. And if you don't fully love it, or you're not there yet, go do it. Sit down, watch it again. And I think with lowered expectations, which, unlike dating, is a good thing here. We are almost out of here for this part of the show. We'll take a quick break. On the other side, we got a lot of great questions from you all. But before we do, we're going to do a ForceCenter recommends an audiobook we think you should try out on us. Joseph, I sense a theme.
That's right. You know what? I started recommending this one a little bit too early, so we've been recommending it for a while, but damn it, we're still going to recommend it. It's Thrawn Ascendancy, Chaos Rising by Timothy Zahn. We are going to be getting into this as we are recording this, not this coming Thursday, but next Thursday. So we'll be reviewing this one soon, so if you want to catch up and have heard the book, please go for it.
Absolutely. Download your free audiobook today at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audio book. We are going to take a quick break, reset. I am going to fix my tongue, and we are going to answer your questions here on ForceCenter.